Welcome to Built for This. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe. My podcast features captivating conversations with intriguing people who have found purpose in their lives through their career, family, or life experiences, and just why they were built for this. Through the stories that you will hear, I trust that you will be inspired and encouraged to find just what you were built for. So let's get started. And thanks for joining us again and coming into the studio. I'm extremely happy to have the privilege and honor of joining a longtime friend. If you follow Texas Rangers baseball, you might not know him, but whatever you've looked at on television was pretty much why he was the reason why you saw that for about 4 decades. And I'm talking about Dave Burchett. Dave, thanks so much for being a part of this and coming in today.
Well, you're welcome. People used to say, I've heard your name. Yeah. And I said, well, it was Steve Busby or Bob Carpenter or someone making fun of me on the air. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about your illustrious Rangers career here in just a little bit. But, this show is obviously it's called Built for This, and so I like to talk to people about why they are where they are in life, whether it's their personal journey, faith journey, professional journey. But let's go back. I think your career and mine mirrored a little bit our early aspirations in life, because I went to college at North Texas thinking I'm going to be the next greatest disc jockey, and I'm going to play music and cue up albums and everything. And you had a similar kind of start, too, I know, up in Chillicothe, Ohio.
In Chillicothe, Ohio, yeah. I went to Marietta College and was majoring in radio and TV. And the summer after my freshman year, I got a job at WCHI.
Okay.
And so I told my parents, this is what I'm going to be looking for when I graduate. So I'm going to go ahead and work for a year or two, go back to college. I'll have experience and a degree. I still have 3 years of eligibility left.
Okay. So you never got back to that.
I haven't gone back yet.
Yep.
So I loved it. I mean, it was so much fun. I was a sports director at a small station and got to do spring training with Cincinnati Reds, and just so much fun. The disc jockey in the morning, and loved it.
Yeah, and those are the great opportunities, because you get to get thrown out there to the wolves and do anything and everything in a radio station like that. Before you get into the directing side of things, I know, like you just said, being on air, sportscasting, and behind the microphone, but you get an opportunity with a great organization, Athletes in Action, not too long after that, and talk about how that came about and the impact it had on you and what your career path and your faith path might be.
Yeah, I don't know what your disc jockey experience was, but when Harry Chapin came out with a song, WOLD.
Yes.
And I kind of looked around and go, he's right.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the rest of my life just traveling from market to market, having to change. And I thought, the people making money were the salesmen.
That's right.
And we were doing all the work and not making much money. Mm-hmm. So I decided, well, maybe I need to move into a different direction. And so I was kind of figuring out where I was going to go next. And I had a crisis in my life that my nephew that I loved dearly, that I was very close with, because he had leukemia, and he lived, my home was halfway between the hospital in Columbus they went to and their home down in southern Ohio. So I spent a lot of time with him, and I was almost like a second dad to him. And when he passed away, I was just devastated, and I was kind of at a faith crossroads. Am I going to continue or not? So I just said, I just asked God, I need for you to give me direction. And this guy showed up in my hometown from Athletes in Action. His name was Wendell Deo. Blew me away with his faith, his personality. And I just was like, wow, I would love to be a part of your organization. And I said, but I can't. And he said, why not? I said, well, Campus Crusade, you have to have a college degree. And he said, well, I think we can get around that because you have a skill set. Okay. So he went to Campus Crusade, and they accepted me as a radio talent. So I got on staff with Athletes in Action, and that was a real game changer for me.
I think I read somewhere that you obviously got to travel a lot of great games. Colleges, I believe, and even colleges could schedule Athletes in Action. It wouldn't count against their schedule.
Right. We played the best top teams in the country. San Francisco when they were number 1, Las Vegas when they were number 3. And I tell people that Coach Tarkanian at Las Vegas, he had a reputation of maybe being a shady guy.
The shark.
I don't know.
Yeah.
He was the only one that had his players stay on the court to hear the testimony of the players at halftime. Every other coach took their team inside, but he made them stay out to hear the testimony of the Athletes in Action players about their faith. So that was just amazing. And I tell people that maybe my one claim to fame is I started out being the television play-by-play announcer for athletes. I did radio, but then when they added television, they had me be the television play-by-play guy. So my first color analyst for Athletes in Action television was John Wooden.
I think I've heard of him.
Just a Hall of Fame player and coach. And I'd love to tell the story. We picked him up at the airport, and I'm with Athletes in Action. I'm making nothing. Another friend of mine, we have this old beat-up tiny Toyota car. We pick up Hall of Famer Coach Wooden, and we're taking him back to the office, and I start to climb in the back seat, and he goes, no, you're tall. Let me get in the back seat. And I'm going, Coach, no. And he goes, I insist.
He's used to being around tall guys.
He insisted, and the Hall of Fame coach and player climbs into the back seat and gives me the front seat because I'm tall. So I tell that story all the time so people will give me that. They'll give me the front seat.
Sure. That's a good reason for that, too. I mean, here's the Wizard of Westwood giving you up the front.
His faith and his ability, when we would watch players, his insight was, how I wish I were recorded more of that conversations with him.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
So somehow, after you kind of wander through the trails of Athletes in Action, how does Dallas come into the picture? Which, as you said at the start of our show, when people think about Dave Burchett, they might think, well, I've heard his name with Texas Rangers telecasts for, you were there 37 years calling the shots there. Right. But that's not really how you got to Dallas to start with.
No, it was time to leave Athletes in Action. No time to get into the reason why, but my boss with Athletes in Action, his name is Paul Phipps, was hired by Norm Sanju to come here to be the assistant general manager, I think it was his title, for the Mavericks when they were starting in 1980.
Right, they were barely getting there.
So he asked Norm, can I bring a couple of my people from Athletes in Action that I have respect for? Greg Jameson was one, and I was the other one. Greg actually ended up becoming a general manager in the National Hockey League, I think for the Phoenix team. But anyhow, so Paul Phipps brought me here and in 1980, and I was kind of a combination of PR and media, and I did the scoreboard stuff back then that was on, at Reunion Arena and all of that. So it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, and obviously that was in the fledgling years of the Mavericks. Right. But before too long, though, you get another opportunity that becomes quite an opportunity to go over to the Texas Rangers. Right. But you didn't have a lot of baseball television directing experience now, did you?
People say, how do you become a director? I said, you don't follow my story. Trust me. I started out as talent, and then when I was with the Mavericks, I produced games. And we would go on the road, and back then we didn't travel a director, we just traveled a producer and talent. And so you would pick up a local director, and sometimes they were really good, and sometimes they were really bad. And one game I came back and talking to Paul, and I said, oh, man, what a disaster that was. And he goes, okay, well, next game you direct. And I'm going, no, I've never directed before. And he goes, no, you're going to direct. And I go, well, what if it's a train wreck? He says, well, we're not going to tell people you're going to do it, and we'll just say we hired a bad director. And I said, well, that would be true. Yeah. So I went, and I survived, and I loved it. And so I started directing Mavericks games. So I'm basically a year and a half into directing Mavericks games when Mark Holtz, who was a legend for many people, I hope might remember him. Exactly. One of the best talents I ever worked with. And he went over to the Texas Rangers, and they were looking for a director. And so he said, well, I know this guy, Dave Burchett. He's a really good guy, and he directs Mavericks. So they hired me without knowing anything about my experience. I had never done baseball.
Wow.
So again, I show up, and it was kind of an interesting thing because I didn't really have experience. I had to depend so much on my crew to help me that it became very much a team atmosphere, and I wanted their input. I wanted them to be a part of it. It wasn't about me. I wanted them to be part of the team, and that became a process that worked really well for me for 37 years of making it not about me, not about the people in the truck or up in the booth. It's all of us together are in this.
I want to talk about that aspect, especially of the world of TV directing and your career. But first of all, what was it, because before you jumped into the Mavericks TV directing, like you said, you were mostly all about being talent and being on the air. But what was it that hooked you, or early on in the, being in the truck or being behind the scenes or the world of directing? What was that got into your blood and said, "Wow, this is something that may define me. This is what I'm built for"?
Well, when I was with Athletes in Action, I was producing halftime and different features and interviews and that kind of thing. I was doing writing for the magazine, for Athletes in Action magazine. And I really enjoyed that. And it's kind of funny that people that are on the air, sometimes we don't like to hear ourselves.
Exactly.
Sometimes we don't like to see ourselves.
Right.
So I thought, I think I might be happier being a behind-the-scenes person as opposed to, trying to be the on-air talent. So that was kind of when I started moving that direction. I came to the Mavericks, and I did a lot of creative stuff for them as far as, for their broadcast and they did a pregame show with Norm Sanju, and we did a lot of really, really fun things, and Mark Holtz was on that. So I loved doing that. So that kind of set me up, and then the producing thing came along, and then the directing. So
yeah. And, without having to define what a director is, and we said at the start, is if you're watching a game, pretty much everything you see, the director has made that decision that's what you're going to see. And then there's other people that execute that. But you're more, that if you had to put a title by your name, interchangeably, I would think, would be director or storyteller. You're really a storyteller.
That's exactly right. And gosh, I hope I don't get in trouble for this. Over the years, when television moved, baseball production moved more from storytelling to analytics. That's when I realized, I'm
losing my mojo.
It's kind of going back now, to storytelling. So, I'm grateful for that. But I tell people probably the best way to describe it is a director is kind of like the quarterback, the producer's like the coach. He has the game plan, often calls the replays and plays and so forth. But the director is the one that executes every live shot, good or bad, is the director. And then the person that's most important is the technical director, because they push all those buttons. You say camera one, they push that button. You say effect to replay on replay machine A. They make that effect. Sometimes they go to what you meant instead of what you actually said. Because they're really good. But it's very much a team thing if done properly.
So you're sitting in a truck, or sometimes I know it's a room, most of the time a truck, looking at just a plethora of monitors there. And so when you see that options, I guess, in front of you, and you're having to make some pretty split-second decisions on what to do. So is your mind constantly building this storyline about, you're having to think ahead? Okay, so if this happens, I think I really want to show, some reaction type things. You're always having to be kind of a writer on air.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's exactly how I started out with baseball with 4 cameras, sometimes 5. I finished with 18.
Wow.
But when it's 4 or 5, you have to really be thinking about what's next. Who's going to score the runner? What you have to be thinking ahead. And that's also a part of, okay, if they score here, we want a dugout reaction. Or when Ron Washington was there, I want to get him.
You want to see that.
It was the best. But you set up those reaction shots. You set up, this camera's going to round the runner at third base. This camera's going to score the runner. This camera is going to ISO, outfield, whatever. So all that needs to be set up in advance. And So when it happens, you already know where you're going to go.
Yeah.
Because you have assigned those cameras. But the one thing I did do is I would tell my guys, I'm in a truck blind. I can't see anything. So you have the freedom. Yeah, we have certain fundamental things you have to do, but you have the freedom to sell me things that you see that I can't see.
Yeah.
And that also really enhanced our broadcast because I'm telling you, Ranger fans have the best crew in all of Major League Baseball. And I might offend a couple of crews that are also really good. The San Francisco crew is amazing. Some others are really amazing, but they're the best. They really are the best. So people are blessed here watching the Ranger. You see incredible camera work.
Let's talk about that family-type atmosphere of the crew that you were a part of since, 1983? 1983 up through the 2024 season. And so to build that kind of rapport, and like you said, you've given such liberty and freedom to the people to be creative on their own. What's that family feeling like when you go to the ballpark and you're going to do a game not knowing what's going to happen, but know that you've got all this creativeness around you that you feel like we're going to have a great product here today?
Absolutely. And when I started out, the atmosphere in the trucks were a lot of times the producers and directors would make it all about them. And when a camera guy or someone would make a mistake, they would go into an obscenity rant of, you are bleeping me by the mistake that you made.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, it's never about me. It's about the person sitting at home on the couch.
Yeah.
That's the one that matters. And, this is not about me. This is about us producing something that is working for that person at home that's watching. So, for example, in live events, I don't know if you've ever made a mistake while you're doing a live event.
Well, a couple of times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mistakes are going to happen. And so I know there are lots of times when a crew member would make a mistake and they're beating themselves up, and I go, okay, let's assign blame. A camera guy makes a mistake. Let's assign blame. So someone who's in the videotape room said, it was my fault. I go, okay, we've assigned blame to the guy doing the replays back there, and so we're good. We can move on. Everybody laughs, and they relax, and they realize that mistakes are not going to be hammered on them.
Yeah.
We just move on.
Yeah.
It's live television.
Yeah.
And I also would tell them, hey, I expect perfection from you when I'm perfect, so believe me, you can breathe easily.
Yeah. Baseball, as you know, baseball is such a long season.
Oh, yes.
And with the stadium, the expanse of it all, difficult sport probably to televise or to direct compared to maybe a more concise arena type thing. But when you go to the ballpark and know that on any pitch or any game that history might be made or some spectacular plays about to be made, that's got to give you a little bit of juice there sitting back that, something spectacular might happen today and we need to make sure we've got it covered.
That's what's so great about baseball. You never know that.
Yeah.
Oakland, routine game. Not many people that many people in the stands.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden in the sixth inning, Nolan Ryan has a no-hitter.
Now everybody's awake.
Goes through 7, goes through 8, and I just say to the crew, okay, let's focus in. This could be going to the Hall of Fame. He creates no-hitter number 6. No idea that's going to happen, but it was. And then, another side of the story is routine game. We're in Cleveland, and the camera guy out in center field has been good-naturedly harassing me the entire time about why I haven't ISO'd his camera.
Oh.
Well, back then we only had 2 replay machines.
Okay.
So we ISO'd normally the game cut and then one other camera. And so the whole time he's giving me a hard time, and we're having fun. And so on the last day I say, okay, we're going to listen. We're going to give him ISO, we're going to let him ISO. 2 innings later, the ball was hit and bounces off of Jose Canseco's head. And the center field camera has the perfect look at it. It's one of my most incredible moments of my career. And the angle, everything was perfect. And people say, whoa, what a great job of directing. And I'm going, yeah.
Well, if you only knew.
If you only knew. It wasn't me.
One of the most iconic video captures in baseball history.
Yeah,
that one right
was
there.
So funny. And David Hall's the center fielder trying to disguise himself from laughing.
Yes, yes. Other sports, well, I want to ask you to pick what is the most enjoyable moment as a Rangers TV director, because the one you mentioned with Nolan Ryan. For someone who's been there for so long, whether it's a moment, it might be personnel, might be people that you worked with, players and people in the broadcast booth. Somebody like Tom Grieve, who was a player and became a long-time loved broadcaster in the booth. But memories there of almost 4 decades of working with players and stuff.
37 years. It's tough to break it down. But getting to work Tom Grieve. I mean, one of the all-time nicest people I have ever met.
Yeah,
he's amazing. Got to work with some incredible people. Bob Carpenter was great. Mark Holtz, as we mentioned. I don't want to.
No,
I'm going to leave some people out.
Sure.
But, Jim Sundberg, great relationship with him. And then in recent years, Adrian Beltre, getting to see him play on a regular basis, he was so much fun, and yet he was so incredibly focused when he should be. But he also had great joy.
Yeah.
And he fought through pain and injuries, and probably my all-time favorite Ranger. But so many, Elvis Andrus. There's so many great guys that you got to be a part of, watching them every day. And Nolan, as we said, his 300th win was really, really special. That's probably never going to happen again. He used to pitch 140 pitches for a complete game.
That's not going to ever happen again.
And now they get to 90 and you can't go another inning. And just so many memories. I think the first time that the Rangers clinched the playoffs was really, really special. It was really a weird thing because they clinched it in extra innings while the team that lost. So when that team, I think Oakland, lost, then the Rangers clinched, and they're still, should we celebrate? We're still playing.
Right.
So it was very, very weird, but it was still an amazing, amazing celebration, and crowd goes nuts. And, back then, again, things were different. So I went down to the clubhouse, and we went off the air, and they're still celebrating. And so Mark McLemore comes up and puts all kinds of alcoholic beverages all over me, and I still thank him for that.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, boy, I need to be really careful driving home.
After this.
If I get pulled over.
They're not going to believe my story at all. Do you miss it? You've been out of it for a year or whatever, but I know you've been able to pinch hit on a few telecasts, but do you miss it much of it?
I loved doing it. I loved my crew, but I don't miss the grind.
Yeah.
As you get older, the energy level, I just didn't have the energy level to continue doing it. As I said, when I decided to step out, it's kind of changing. Now it's changing back. So, I don't regret leaving, but I feel very blessed to occasionally go back and get to work with my crew again. I got to do 10 games this year. I got to do 4 games opening weekend for the Diamondbacks a couple years ago because their director was unavailable. So, that's really fun.
I do want to talk about your life as a book author and different things like that. And maybe one more baseball question here, but or TV directing in general. So it wasn't always the Rangers or the Mavericks. I mean, you've been able to do the Olympics, an opportunity there, and some college and pro sports. And what's that been like to diversify a little bit and not, just do baseball?
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah.
Getting to do college basketball, college football, and the SEC and the ACC. I used to do ESPN Monday night, Big 12, and I did the Olympics in Seoul, Korea, which was 1988.
Yeah, that's back there.
That was a while back, but we got a national Emmy for that production. I mean, I was just part of the team, but still, it's a national Emmy, so it's very, very cool. But it was very, very fulfilling to do different because you got to work with crews all around the country and very fulfilling.
All right, let's talk books.
Okay.
Book authors, and then you have several that you have written. Before we talk about the books, what prompted, was there anything that says, you know what, I think I need to write a book or two, or I know there's some that are heavily driven by your faith and great messaging in those, but was there anything that, said, yeah, I think I want to write something?
I was very good friends with a guy named Bob Briner. I don't know if you knew Bob or not, but he wrote an amazing book. And now, of course, the title has slipped my mind. But we were close. We were neighbors. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. He kind of had a sports career. He was a sports executive. We would go to lunch. And I said, man, I would love to write a book. And he goes, well, you should. And
Do it.
Well, it's kind of like when they said you need to direct Maverick films. I go, I don't know. He goes, no, you have more talent than anyone I know. I think he was just being nice.
Sure.
But he kind of gave me some ideas, and he just said, if you want to write a book, just whatever's on your heart, just write about it. And at that point, we were struggling in my faith in a situation that happened in my church, and it was very, very difficult. And so I wrote a book, and they titled it "When Bad Christians Happen to Good People."
Great title.
And it was basically about, what happens when we don't represent our faith properly, the impact that has. And the original title I wanted to do was "Don't Reject Christ Because of Christians." You have to decide who he is, not whether I'm living it or not. That's not the decision. So anyhow, I wrote that book and kind of talked about the experience and other things. And it actually did very well. It sold pretty well. And then a few years later, I was thinking...
Like you have one here. I'm going to show that, this one.
This one?
Here's the first one. Let's see if we can get that up there. I don't know if that's blocking me or not, but okay, so that was your first one, and then you decided, well, I might just...
I wrote a follow-up book to that. It didn't do as well, and then a few years later, I thought I might write another one, and so I'm with a group of guys that we get together every year, and I had just lost my rescued Labrador named Hannah, and she had been with us through my wife's cancer journey, and thank goodness she survived. She's still with me. Yeah. But Hannah was with us, and she would go comfort Joni during her treatment, chemotherapy, and all that. And she would go play with me when she saw I was down. She was just incredible. So I'm just writing some stuff about Hannah and lessons I'd learned from her. And so I had these different little blogs written, and these guys that I met with said, "You need to write a book about that." And I go, "Yeah, right. A guy writing about how I'm discipled by a dog. Yeah, sure, that makes sense.
I like it.
That my faith is dogmatic. Sure." And they said, "Yeah, you do." So I went ahead and I did it. We rescued another lab named Maggie. So the combination of spiritual lessons I got from those two dogs, I wrote in the book called Stay.
And let's show that one up here.
That one.
Here we go.
That's my best-selling book, and it's just basically lessons that you learn from one of God's amazing creations. I tell people that, if you want to really be a good Christian or follower of Jesus, act like a dog. Have unconditional love, forgiveness instantly, live in the moment.
Yeah.
Be happy to see everyone, no matter what they look like.
Yeah.
And you have those traits.
Well, a little more about that book before we talk about this last one. How did at that time when you were going through that with your wife's cancer journey, and you're just scribbling this down, not knowing anything about that, what this book might become,
right.
How comforting was it, though, for you to just, first of all, just write your thoughts down and write what your dog is doing with you at that time? How did it help you through that difficult time as a comfort, as an inspiration, maybe?
Well, I think people, they go through their faith in different ways about how they kind of reinforce or grow. And for me, writing about my faith is helpful, because when I write something, and especially when I publish it, I want to live that. I don't want to be lying.
Yeah.
Not that I'm perfect and, always consistent, but I really want to try when I'm writing these things. So it's helpful for me to write about the things I'm experiencing, going through, what I'm learning, that God's presence is with me, or I'm learning to trust Him in difficult situations. So that's really, really helpful for me when I write that and publish it and review it. I want to examine my own heart and see, you living this? Are you being honest? Is this real?
Yeah. How did you get the title, Stay?
One of the chapters is when we talk about how we need to just be anchored in our faith. Mm-hmm. That one of the lessons that I taught the dog was when they're misbehaving or quote unquote sinning, if you can get them to stay, they'll be good. So same kind of thing. When we have a bad reaction, if we just stop and realize I need to sit here and focus on the Lord and my faith, mm-hmm. then I can do better. This is not who I am. This is not what I want to do. So that was kind of using that example from the dog. Was the publisher came up with that title, and that's what we went with.
And before I get to the last one, you do a regular blog.
I do
as well, and that is it faith based? I mean, it's always some kind of great messaging, and so
it is. Yeah.
Was that just a kind of an outgrowing of writing the books and expressing yourself after telling stories on television all this time?
It actually mainly started when my wife Joni was going through a cancer journey. I was writing and kind of what we were going through, and the feelings, and you can relate to this. Yeah. You totally understand it. So started that, and over the years, just wrote a lot of different faith issues. But the last 10 years or so, I've really just focused on very positive things and grace and things that we should do to represent our faith. Because there's a lot of people willing to talk about the other side.
Sure.
So I want to just really concentrate on the grace and kindness and taking care of others and living out your faith in a way that makes a difference, that you can be a light when people are going through darkness and walking with them. So.
How difficult was that to, I guess, try to live that when working in a... I wouldn't say that in sports is a difficult atmosphere, but it can be challenging to faith, and you're traveling a lot, and it's just your people you come in contact with. But how much did writing the blog, obviously the difficult time with your wife, but how did that help strengthen you even when you're trying to still work and focus on that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Because as you know. Language in movies and TV shows doesn't bother me because I've been in a TV truck for 40 years.
Yeah.
So, but they never heard the language from me. And so I just hope that would be an example. And if they started down a direction that was uncomfortable, I would just graciously point that out. And when the only thing I would ever really say is if they took the Lord's name in vain, I would say that makes me very uncomfortable. I'd appreciate it if you didn't do that.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I just was trying to be an example of loving them even when they were maybe not being gracious. But yeah, it can be a challenging environment. But when you develop those relationships where they learn to trust you, and then they're willing to talk about why you are who you are, whereas if you just come in and they don't know anything about you, they're probably not going to listen. But if they know you and they've seen you and they know you care about them, they're going to listen.
All right, let's talk about this other book, Between the White Lines. You can take us back to this story now. This is back to your TV directing, which you directed some great Texas high school state championship games. But a little bit about the story of this book, which is an incredibly inspirational story about the coach.
Yeah. Texas high school football championships are one of my all-time favorite things. I love doing the small towns. They're in Jerry World.
Yes.
These kids come in, they're 17 years old. There's, 400 people or 1,000 people in their town, and they walk in and there's 80,000 seats and that gigantic scoreboard, and they're just, it's kind of like Hoosiers. You have to point out that it's 100 yards.
It's the same.
But we were on it. We do conference calls with the coaches before, and Coach W.T. Johnston from Newton was talking about his team, and then someone asked him about his health situation, and he was going through this lung disease that was usually fatal and very unusual. And I'm trying to remember, there was a Buffalo Bills defensive end that had that same disease that passed. Name slips my mind right now. But Coach is talking about it, and his story was amazing. And I just like, wow. And he just kept talking about how he didn't focus on that. He just was focused on his team, and he was saying all these things. And he said, well, people said I should write a book about it. And he said, but I can't do that. So afterwards, I got together with him and said, if you want to write a book, I'm interested. And he goes, well, we'll see. So they won the state championship.
Yeah.
I contacted him. My wife and I went down to Newton, Texas, spent a couple of days with him and his wife. And he said, yeah, I want you to do this. And on the way back, I said to Joni, because I trust her so much, I said, what do you feel? Do you feel he's legit? She goes, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And her judgment on that, other than maybe when she said I do to me 49 years ago, her judgment's been perfect.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
But, so I got to hang with him for a year and a half. He won another state championship. He was in a wheelchair in the final. Wasn't even supposed to be there. And we went down and did an interview with him after the second in a row state championship. And he did a 5-minute interview. And I think over 5 million people have seen it now. And he talked about, they said, well, this must make you feel really, really good to win the second one. He goes, this is not about me. So this is about my kids and my players. He said, 50 years from now, this will be a big deal for them. He said, as for me, if I've done things right, I'll be in their heart forever. Wow. That's great.
Powerful.
If I've done things right, I will be in their hearts forever. And that is stuck in my mind with all relationships with my kids, my grandkids. If I do things right, that'll be a piece of their memory in their heart.
And here's the book, Between the White Lines. Dave Burchett, this is a great book. What after doing that season and that game and his story, then what prompted you to think that, I'm going to write a book about that? Or is this another extension of his story reaching his message could be an inspiration to kids later on too?
I really wanted to get his story out because I knew his time was short. Yeah. So I self-published instead of trying to find a publisher because I wanted him to see it before he died. He got to see the rough draft before he passed away. And then, the book has sold obviously very well done in his part of the world. Yeah. But, it's really interesting. It's such an amazing story. And I'm just going to say, this is not about me. This could be a movie.
Absolutely.
This could absolutely be a movie for one of those networks that does those kind of faith-based stories, because when he was basically on his deathbed, he has a story in there that I think if this were done into a movie, it would blow people away. Yeah. And I'm not going to give it away because I want them to read the book.
Yes, they should.
But I'm telling you, if it was a movie, it would have a powerful impact. And his life, he was in an area where the racial situation was difficult. He was amazing with his athletes of all persuasions, and they all loved him so much, and he was so kind, took care of them. So his story, his faith, the way he lived it out, the way he went through that journey, which was so, so difficult. I just remember I went to see him right before he passed away. And so I'm leaving, and I'm thinking in my heart, it's probably the last time I'll see him. Yeah. And he looked at me, he took my hand, he held it tightly, and he said, "Keep your eyes on the cross." It's the last words to me.
Wow.
And I'm just like, wow.
Powerful.
Yeah.
You talked about that you're a storyteller, and there's one, to know W.T. Johnston and others that you've come across with over 50 plus years, more than that now. How has that changed you? How has that made you a different person from when you started out as a disc jockey in Ohio to now through the journals and trials of life?
Well, that you find people, hopefully, that show you how to get through difficult situations. You're one. Yeah. I respected so much how you went through what you went through with your wife and how you maintained your faith through that very difficult journey. And I've had the blessing of being around people that have shown me how you can be a light even in darkness. That if you depend on your faith and you depend on God and you still go forward with hope, whether the answer is going to be now or later, whether your hope is here or eternal reunion, that, you can still, I had my pastor, Jeff Denton, that passed away with cancer, and he just so amazing.
Yeah.
That he taught me what it looks like. If I, you hope you don't go through that, but if I do, I've seen from him how you can go through that situation and impact others even as you're going through a really difficult situation. So I've had been so blessed with people that have shown me what it looks like to be a light in the darkness for other people.
At this stage now, I mean, I could retire. I'm at that stage, but I think I would be bored to death. So I do something like start a podcast, of all things. What's your motivator now? What's your thing? You don't have to show up at the ballpark and spend hours and hours and hours of doing a telecast, or maybe is there other books or things to write? What's scratching your mind right now?
I'm always thinking about writing something, but mainly my motivation is 8 grandkids.
Well, that'll do it. That'll keep you busy.
So, yes, from basically 2 months to 14 years.
Yeah,
so
wow.
They're in a really fun stage, so that's part of it. My wife and I have freedom now to travel and go do things. Very involved with my church, which is an incredible place. If anyone lives in the Wiley area, it's Waterbrook Bible Fellowship. Come see us. Our slogan is a place to belong. And that's what we want any church to be, that no matter what you're going through, whether you feel beating yourself up or whatever, you come in, it feels like a place to belong, that people embrace you and care about you. So very active, involved there. So, and occasionally doing a few directing things here and there.
Sure, yeah. I like to ask this question because you look at you've had such a varied life, career, professionally, but certainly personally, your growth, your faith, your family, what you've been through with your wife and what she's been through too. But words of encouragement for someone that is like starting out, thinking, I'm going to get in this crazy TV business, so I'm going to get into this entertainment business. But also just as, taking on life themselves. Maybe they're coming right out of college, where a lot of them are trying to figure out what they want to do in life. But you have great insight on a lot of different things you've seen that way. But what words of encouragement for people?
Well, on the professional side, and I tell this to anyone who talks to me, is you've got to come in and show up early and work hard and do things that maybe you don't want to do with a good attitude, and stay until you're sure they don't need you, because unfortunately, that's not a common thing now.
No.
And that will stick out over time. And as far as how you get through it personally, you need to be in community. Mm-hmm. You need to have affirmation. You need to have people that support you and care about you. In my case, it's church and friendship, but other communities are available, but that's very, very important, because you can tend to beat yourself up if things aren't going well. Mm-hmm. And, for me, I finally, after a lot of years, began to just fully put my trust in God that it's going to work out. Mm-hmm. And when things weren't going the way I thought, and then later I look back and I go, oh, okay, now I see why that happened. Now I see why that didn't open up and that did. Mm-hmm. There was one example that I was about to sign a contract with a major network and many, many years ago, and I was super excited about it. And then all of a sudden they changed their mind. On Friday I was going to sign it. On Monday they said, no, we're not going to do this. Mm. I'm going, what happened? And then later, when I look back at it and I saw the tension, the atmosphere of that particular job, I go, that would have been horrible for me.
Yeah.
And so what God did is he blocked that and gave me my thing, not as big a deal, but with my crew here, which developed relationships that matter to me, affirmation and fun. And so it was just like, I would much rather have that than be a big deal but miserable.
Yeah. You got to be happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you ever sit on the sofa watching games thinking, oh, I probably wouldn't have shown that. I would have shown this. I mean, are you going through any of that withdrawal?
No comment.
No disparagement to any
people
directors.
That sit and watch
it's
games
natural.
with me, I'll sit and I go, oh. And they go, what? I said, you didn't see that?
They didn't even.
There's like a little camera swish or something.
Yeah.
and I see it. They didn't see it. So
Sure.
I have learned to step away from that. But
It's got to be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. What other than maybe writing or so? I mean, do you still like to take on the inquiry of, hey, could you do this project, direct this show or direct this game, or if the Olympics were to call again and say, we'd like you to come do this venue?
I'm in a kind of a fun place where if I want to do it, I can say yes.
I understand
and
that.
If I don't want to, I can say, oh, I'm sorry, I have a grandkid event.
There you go.
Yeah.
T-ball game. I'm
Which
sorry, I
may
can't
or
do
may
that.
not be true, but how can they get mad about that?
Great excuse.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, you've just accomplished great things, both professionally and personally in your faith, and you're just a great example and inspiration to a lot of us. So thanks for showing us why you were built for this, and thanks for being on the show.
Oh, I appreciate it. I was surprised to be one of your first guests. I thought I'd be at the bottom of the barrel.
Well, maybe the paper got switched and it was upside down. No, thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right, Dave.
Thanks for joining me on this episode of Built for This. Be sure to follow Built for This on your favorite listening platform and share it with a friend. Join me on the next episode when I will share entertaining stories of inspiration, encouragement, and purpose-driven experiences. What are you built for? Built for This is produced and recorded by Heart Media DFW.